Hi everyone, Chris Natzke here with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching with your Mind of a Champion tip of the week. I have a question for you. Are you being a victim or are you being an owner? I first had this question posed to me by super coach Steve Chandler, who asked that very question in one of his great seminars I attended. The concept kind of goes like this, is we've got events and circumstances that happen in our life all the time. Many times they're challenging, and we have a choice of how we're going to react to that. We can either react to it with emotion or flying off the handle, or we can and not own them and be victimized by them, or we can slow down and respond to them and actually own what's happening. Do you want to be victimized by it, or do you want to own that situation? You know, it reminds me of a story. There were two young twin brothers that were born, and researchers had followed them from the time they were born all the way into adulthood. And now they're young men, they're 30, 32 years old, and the researchers come to visit them. Now, they had grown up in a rough household. Dad was a drinker and also addicted to drugs, couldn't hold down a job, he deserted them, he'd also spent time in jail. And so they went to the first brother, and what they found was the first brother had followed the same path as his dad. He had been addicted to drugs and alcohol, he had spent some time in prison, he was estranged from his wife, his ex-wife, and his kids. And when they asked him about his circumstances, he said, well, hey, growing up with a dad like I did, how could it be any different? Then they went to the second brother. Now, the second brother had followed a very different path. He had not only gone, but graduated college. He had married a great lady, and they had two awesome kids together. And he also had a job that he loved that was making an impact. And when they went to him, they said, well, how did you come to the circumstances you're in? He said, well, growing up with a father like I had, how could it be any different? Same circumstance, two different results. And so the question is how do you deal with challenges? You know, and it's easy, you know, during this time when things get really challenging for us to feel victimized, to ask the question, you know, why is this happening to me? Why did that person treat me this way? You know, why am I always having all these challenges? But when we take a real objective look at things, what we find out is despite the challenges that occur, and quite honestly, I've been in that victim role myself, but I had to take a look at myself, and when I look at the pattern, I'd see that there was a common denominator. I was always there. I was always there. So we have the ability to we may not be able to change the circumstance, like I said, but we can always respond to it. So what I want to share with you right now are three questions that I think really not only help me, but have also helped my clients when we're looking to move from being a victim to being an owner. So here's the first question. What's really happening in this circumstance? Now, I've shared this question in other blogs that I've done, but I wanted to repeat it again because it's so powerful. Because when we have challenging situations that happen, it's very easy for us to play the victim role and or get into our own story about what's happening. But when you say what's really happening here, what you do is you extract the story out and you just look at it for the facts at hand, right? You know, I had a business deal fall through. I have an illness. I had a relationship that fractured. Those are the facts. And once we can do that, and it doesn't mean that we're not upset by what occurred. It doesn't mean that we don't take our time to grieve. But then when we're ready to do that, we step back and say, what's really happening here? Because that's when we can take action against it. Number two, it's all about accountability, is to ask ourselves, what did I do to create, promote, or allow this to happen in my life? Ooh, that's a heavy one there. And that's not necessarily meant to be a blame game question. You see, it's not about blaming ourselves. It's about stepping back and taking an objective view of what's occurring. And think of it this way. If we feel that we have the power to create, promote, or allow a situation in our lives, then it would stand to reason that we have the power to change it as well. So my question for you is when you're going through challenges, what have you done to put yourself in that situation? And again, not from a blaming standpoint, but from a place of taking back your power. And then number three is what's the next right move? I know in my own personal life, there have been times when I'm dealing with challenges and I'm so overwhelmed by them as I just get frozen. I just stop acting altogether. But what I've come to find out is that when we take action, even if it's small, that momentum begins to build and it brings solutions that maybe we didn't even know were there before. Two of my favorite teachers in my life are Dr. Ron and Mary Holnick at the University of Santa Monica. And they've often said during my 2 years in their master's degree program that God meets us at the point of action. So whether you want to use the word God, spirit, higher power, whatever it is, that force in the universe that we are looking to help us build that momentum, it starts when we start to meet it at that point of action. So even how small it might be, what's an action you can take when you are dealing with challenges? So there you go, my friends. There are my 3 questions on how to deal with challenging times and move ourselves from victimhood to ownership. And when we do that, that's when we can make massive changes and have massive victories in our lives. So I hope you enjoyed this message today. As always, if you enjoyed it, you got value from it, please like it, share it, make comments on it as well. And if you want to go to my website, chrisnatzke.com, I've got loads of other stuff on there that I know that can really help you on your journey. So once again, this has been Chris Natzke with Black Belt Leadership Speaking and Coaching, and we'll see you next time on the Mind of a Champion Tip of the Week.